So this looks like we're live already. So welcome everyone to this Web3 talk. The topic of this talk is going to be interoperability in Web3. And we will touch upon the high-level vision, what does interoperability enable, use cases near and far, and because all of the guests here somehow built in and around the Polkadot ecosystem, we'll also touch a little bit upon Polkadot's approach to cross-chain communication and take it from there. My name is Natalie. I'm product marketing lead at Parity, and one of my big projects is supporting the marketing for the launch of Polkadot's cross-chain communication functionality. So this topic is very close to my heart, and I'm super happy to have such amazing panelists here today. I'll do a short intro, just like a one-liner about our guests, and then you can take it from there. So we've got Ingo Rübe, founder and CEO of Kilt Protocol. Kilt is a protocol for decentralized identities in Web3. We've got David Finkelstein, head of growth at Oak Network, a Web3 DeFi and hub and payment automation protocol also in Web3. And then Dakota Barnett, founder of InvArt, a meta protocol for intellectual property in Web3. And maybe one disclaimer before, if we have people in the audience who are not too familiar with Polkadot, so you might hear the word parachains a couple of times. So parachains are individual blockchains that are built on Polkadot. They are sovereign, tailored to their specific use case, and all secured via the Polkadot network. And cool. So I will hand over for the introduction. So why don't you say a few words about who you are, what your company does, and maybe to set the stage, how important interoperability was for you when you chose to build on Polkadot. Who wants to start? David, what about you? No mic.
Oh. I can jump in while with that. Okay. So hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. My name is Dakota Barnett. I am one of the founders of InvArt's network and head of product over here. So as mentioned, we focus on intellectual property, but underneath that little jargon of IP, really what we are is just a very advanced and intuitive NFT ownership protocol with a focus on empowering DAOs and the creator economy. And a reason why we chose to build on Polkadot, and I mean, kind of like an uncompromisable thing about the vision of our future is we see this very connected, interoperable future for the internet. And we see a lot of extremely powerful applications and dApps being built across them all. And for InvArt and our use cases, breaking away from siloed systems, siloed ecosystems is really important for a free and open and connected internet. So Polkadot, after a bunch of research, was truly the only option that fit all of our needs. So here we are building on it now.
That's cool. Great to hear. Shall we continue with? Shall we try, David?
We'll try.
Yeah.
Am I coming through now?
Fantastic.
All right, there we go. Nice. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I don't know, something connected and disconnected right before we went live. But I'm David. I'm the head of growth at Oak Network. We're an automation hub for cross-chain automation in Web3. As far as interoperability, it's the absolute crux of kind of what we do. We're an infrastructure layer that allows you to sort of do an if this then that schedule transaction in the future. So right now we're live with time triggers. We got price triggers coming soon. We'll talk about all that, and smart contract state change triggers. But because of the nature of the product, and because blockchains have limited block space and compute time, the whole idea is that if you want to schedule something in the future, you can kind of offload that to Oak, and we'll use the XCM protocol or something else to call that function on the user's behalf in a secure and trustless fashion without having to rely on bots and things of that nature. So that's quite a bit of a dense mouthful, I know. We can talk more about Oak later, I'm sure, but hopefully that gets people excited and somewhat clear as to the value prop of what we do.
Okay, yeah, I'm Ingo. I'm from Kilt. So why are we on Polkadot? So when we were researching digital identity, we were thinking a lot of how these use cases should actually work and why other cases we have seen before actually didn't work so good and maybe died. And I think one of the reasons was that if you want to do digital identity, it must be extremely scalable, right? So this must go on industry scale. And for industry, if you talk with industry people and say, yeah, your identity, putting it on the blockchain may cost $1 today, and it may cost $100 tomorrow, then they say, okay, then I can't control my production costs. Thank you. I'm going to a database. And this is why we couldn't be like a smart contract on whatever chain. We needed to control our own gas cost. We needed to control the chain 100%. So we were actually forced for building identity to build our own chain. And the substrate framework, which is Polkadot was built on, was exactly what we were looking for, because it supports what I call a purpose chain, a chain which has only one purpose, like dealing with digital identity, not dealing with NFTs, not dealing with any communication, not dealing with anything, just doing this one thing right. And the idea of the Polkadot ecosystem is exactly that you have different specialized chains which provide a utility to other chains and do their thing right, but do nothing else. And they don't compete for the computing power of a chain, right? When you have smart contracts, then all the smart contracts basically somehow compete. This is why the gas prices go up. In Polkadot, you run your own chain and you don't compete for anything, right? And that was, it's a cooperative approach rather than a competitive approach, which is, I think, the right idea to build an ecosystem.
Interesting. It's super cool and very well summarized. I also always, when I think about why we talk about interoperability so much and why it's such an important part of Web3, I also think it's the cooperation and kind of what we had with APIs and integrations in Web 2. That's what interoperability enables in Web3, the sort of purpose chains and utility chains and kind of having your open interface to other apps and chains. Super cool. Do you want to say maybe just a couple of words about the kind of tech or the big, let's say, differentiators? Because we always hear the words XCM and then we hear the names of the transport protocols. And what I would also find exciting is what you see are like the big differences, and it doesn't have to be all good for Polkadot, of course, but what other approaches are out there and how do they compare?
Well, I'd say when it comes to like assessing other solutions that exist, and there's many options, but one of the key things about Polkadot is that there is this uncompromisable shared security. And we've seen that in action already with XCM transfers or using HRMP channels with pre-existing parachains. But for anyone in the space who has sent a token from, let's say, Akala over to Moonbeam, or from Astar to any other ecosystem, or you sent your crab to over to Fala for their subport, their router. You've used XCM for these transfers, and you used in a sense, you've avoided all of the flaws that come around with these kind of alternative bridging solutions between ecosystem to ecosystem. So we've been using it a lot, and it's really, really awesome because it's just kind of seamless and safe and secure, which is nice compared to. It's not to say that there isn't the ability to make transfers between ecosystems. You can do this in IBC, but there are questions around the security models of these chains to where all those other chains that are connected to IBC, it might be faster for developers for some projects to go ahead and launch over there. But I think that Polkadot is a very while we have a lot of fun, we send a lot of all the GMs, but we're also very serious about what we do, about what we're building, and the foundation that Polkadot provides. We kind of understand that we're building out the foundation for what will be Web3, and we see Polkadot as that ultimate lower layer. And so, I mean, I would say, like, maybe you can afford to have some flaws and some security risks in those other ecosystems, but at least for us, like when we're building that foundation, we can't afford those. So it's one of the big points for Polkadot that makes it very attractive compared to other ecosystems. And it's not to say that there can't be faults or flaws within our ecosystem or with code, but when it comes to that matter of security, it's something that gives people peace of mind, which I think is very important, because in the broader scale of adoption, if and on the internet, people don't worry about that on a day-to-day basis. So in Web3, they shouldn't have to either. They should be able to tap into and experience all of the enhancements and benefits that Web3 brings to the world, but with the same, more or less, seamless experience that they're kind of already used to with Web2. And that's just thing with that Ingo was saying with like gas prices and even like forkless runtime upgrades. I mean, that's so important. It might sound like a little thing. It might not be the most attractive feature to like name, but it's amazing. It's really powerful, because whenever you need to make an upgrade, it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to have is there going to be a hard fork? Is there going to? That's just not how the rest of the world is used to operating. And because of Polkadot and because of the solution it provides over, I guess you could say, competitors. It takes a lot of things out of the equation. And the last thing I'll say also is that they, in one sense, they might be, you might view them as competitors, but the one thing that I really loved about Polkadot, and again, like here with interoperability, is that I didn't see Polkadot as it's this or that. I can build on Polkadot, and because I build on Polkadot, we can connect with everything else. And that, to me, that was the key there, compared to building on other places and being interoperable within these ecosystems, but really just becoming bigger silos. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more space between the walls, but it's still a silo. Whereas Polkadot, there's all the barriers are broken down, or at least they can be.
Yeah. And
Sorry. And maybe adding a little bit to XCM, because I'm not sure if there's hundreds of people in here, and I'm not sure if everyone actually got the concept, and so why do we actually need that stuff? So the idea is if you want to have interchain communication, so let's say Polkadot wants to talk to Ethereum, or we like Kilt want to talk with Moonbeam or so. Then this is interchain communication. So we somehow have to transport something from here to there, and those are autonomous systems, basically. So how do you connect them? We see that very often. It's called bridges, right? And a bridge basically takes a message from this chain and then computes something and then puts it on this chain and then reports back that it happened. Of course, there's a huge flaw in this concept, because you have two totally decentralized systems here and there, which are hopefully totally secure. And then in the middle, you have a centralized thing, which is run by a person that's called a bridge. So this thing is sometimes not even audited, as we have seen. And sometimes it is audited, but it tends to break somehow. And this causes a lot of trouble if that happens. So those bridges are somehow a little bit dangerous. And the solution to that could be, this is what Gavin Wood probably thought when he was inventing XCM and XCMP, was why don't we put something in the middle which is absolutely secure? Hey, another blockchain. So what we do in XCM and XCMP, we actually take this one blockchain, this talks to the relay chain, which is Polkadot or Kusama, and then the Polkadot and Kusama relay chain talks to the other chain, and then they talk back. So that's the idea, right? So you replace something centralized and dangerous with something which is secure. That is the basic idea of what we do in XCM. And this is the fundamental difference between having normal bridges and having XCM and XCMP. And XCM and XCMP is something which is accessible to every parachain in Polkadot. So it is a standard module, call that a palette, so that you can actually just import into your runtime of your chain, and then it can start talking with the other chains, which means that you can basically execute any command on the other chain, which is totally powerful, I would say.
Yeah, and I'll just add very quickly from like kind of the growth perspective, since I'm probably the least technical on the call, it's really important for us because as an infrastructure kind of platform, if we don't have other people to build with who've kind of already agreed upon how we're going to be working with each other, we get to leapfrog quite a few conversations. We start to talk about there's a lot of complexity with fees and security, obviously, which we're working through with other chains right now before we launch our first product. But starting at that point of like, okay, we're going to use XCM as opposed to the IBC or the Cosmos ecosystem, where you kind of have to figure out all these other things about which cloud or which layer you're going to be building into. It makes it a lot easier to be in the Polkadot ecosystem building when everyone has interoperability already in mind from day one.
That's true. And you just mentioned different layers. Can XCM be used between dApps and also between the chains building?
Yeah, for Oak, we're looking at all of it. So we're doing some things kind of at the chain level. Obviously, we have to kind of work our way up. So like I said, the time trigger's live on our own chain. You'll be seeing kind of auto compounding for staking going live with us first, and then you'll see that feature kind of branch out into the other chains. And then once those those channels are set up, those HRMP channels are set up, and those time triggers are active chain to chain, then the dApps then will kind of immediately have access to it. And that's the fun part about the decentralized nature of it all, which is you don't need to call up corporate and ask for the contract to sign, give me 50K so I have access to this API for the next year. If you got gas, you're good to go. So that's what we're hoping to see kind of really expand over the next 6 to 12 months.
True. Super cool. And we started already a little bit with use cases, and I also want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about them. So when we talk about use cases in Web3 and use cases that are enabled through interoperability, there are like different ways how to, let's say, cut or approach how we're going to talk about it. It's by industry, it's by is it purpose, infrastructure, application layer. So you can take it from anything, but maybe one thing that would be cool would be to talk about use cases that are already up and running now, and the ones that you're looking forward to see in the near or far future. So the crazy business models that are somewhere on the horizon.
I'd really love to talk about like the future of things, like what's to come, just because I get really excited about all those things. Just because there's different I guess there's different levels to this, and with everything, because there's like at the protocol level XCM, but then there's also like there's going to be dApps. It's like cross-chain dApps, so a singular dApp that is powered in part by multiple protocols, and thus is able to showcase and utilize like their features to do something really awesome. And that's what I am like really most excited for in the future, just because I feel like I feel like most people now are getting it. They're understanding like the power that Polkadot brings. But a lot of people are like, oh, Polkadot has been around for like, X amount of years, 5 years. And there's the journey of like what's going on. And for one, people don't understand what Polkadot in itself is. And there's all the parachains and there's this process. But once we start to see cross-chain, like dApps being built using cross-chain protocols, then that's when I really feel like things are going to go from like 0 to 100 in like it's going to happen so fast. It's going to be really amazing. So all that out of the way, like just like some ideas or some things, I'll give an example of what we are working on with Invarch. So there's a few things, but one of them is called GitArch. We've recently released our IMV4 Git tool. So like there's our parachain on Kusama called Tinkernet. We have our IMV4 protocol, which is primarily focused around NFT primitives, and it allows individuals, basically it allows for Git version control and the same exact experience that people are already familiar with on their computer and with GitHub, but just instead of GitHub, it's the chain and being able to use GitArch, which will be a dApp that we're using. But alone, it's really awesome what it can do. It can circumvent and provide this really amazing decentralized version control solution. However, then once you start to tap into other features as well, then things get really awesome. Because let's say Kilt, for example. So Kilt, I'm a huge DID like fan. I think that DID solutions are, there's no question they're going to be major in the future. If you disagree with that, like I don't know how to like tell you that 1 + 1 = 2, but with you tie in something like that, so you have like on-chain resumes for developers. At least like in my experience, you're trying to when you're hiring, there are tons of people out there that will send you a GitHub and send you all this information, and they'll even hop into an interview with you, but like that's not their GitHub, that's not them, and honestly it wastes so much time. It wastes my time. Honestly, it's a waste of their time too, because they don't get hired. But big waste like that can be entirely avoided with DID solutions. So you tie something like that in with GitArch, and then we could start to see that problem be eradicated. There are potentials for like music platforms that are really, really powerful, tied with IP. But one of the things about the experience with all of that is you can have this really intuitive like music platform that is built using IMV4, like I mentioned. So you can have like kind of like all this tethering of assets and collaboration for streamlining assets. But when it comes down to the experience of this, though, I mean, the reason that I use Spotify is because I'm able to pay money and I pay my subscription. And whether I'm listening to 5 songs or 1,000 songs that month, it's easy, it's simple. So you can have this amazing platform, but then let's say you tie in something like with Oak Network, and now you have subscriptions going on, and you have that process like being automated. Well, now people are actually more inclined to use this platform because they can mirror that same experience they're used to with Web 2. But even better is because we've removed the third party, which would be the Spotify company in this situation. Now, so I pay, let's say I pay $10 a month, and artists do not see that $10. I know that for a fact, especially if I've only listened to 4 songs. I mean, Spotify just made a good $9.99 off me. But when we remove that third-party solution, I mean, all I'm saying is if I only listen to 4 songs, let's say 20% of the funds go to Treasury out of my subscription, and the other 80%, I mean, heck, that goes amongst those 4 songs that I listen to. So now those artists are making God knows how much more than they were making before. At the same time, people are having the same experience that they had before. So that's just the power. And I'm only talking about just 2 protocols at a time in each of these examples, but they get insanely powerful. So yeah, I just get excited about all that. There's also one last thing, there's like our Daoist CDK, which we're working on for the future, and that would be in collaboration, or is in collaboration with Invarch and Fala, or specifically it'd be Tinkernet and Kala on Kusama. And what you have is you have these NFTs. Like imagine a building, and in this building there are 3 levels to the building, and there's a bunch of different doors. Each level is like more important than the one below it. And to get into these doors, you need a key card. Well, we have the NFT primitives, which kind of act like these key cards, gated access to all of these different doors. And it's like multi-layer governance. So they could also affect which floor you have access to and all these different things. But we're able to bring this really powerful like on-chain governance system, which is what true DAOs like would actually use. We're able to bring this and bridge it with the Discord UI and provide that same exact experience that people are already used to, that quote unquote DAOs exist in, by using a fat contract to launch a bot that actually owns the server, but the fat contract is actually essentially managed by the entire community. In which case, like it gets really nutty and really awesome, because now you have true Web3 governance, but it's the same UI that everyone's already using. So you don't have to go through the struggle of like, here's that experience of here, come learn something entirely new. Just you're already used to it, but it's now going to be trustlessly managed and have really transparent governance. And again, that's just another like one-on-one, like 2 examples. So when you like go beyond that, I mean, you start to tap into networks like Akala. You have stablecoin for actually like stable currency, like markets for a lot of things. Even connecting, let's say, Kilt, Invarch, I was talking about with like the GitArch thing with DID solution for developers for their code, their repositories. Then you could also work with Fala to use their fat contracts to replace GitHub Actions. And now you have a truly, I mean, it does everything GitHub does. So I'll stop there, but it's just really awesome. Yeah.
I love that I asked for the use cases near and far, and I said the crazy ones, and I thought that they're going to be very far in the future, and you're already working on very cool stuff. That's super cool. Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Polkadot's awesome. It's really awesome.
It's great to have an evangelist.
I find it really hard to add anything to that. So maybe as a principle, this is exactly how it should be, right? This is how it was planned. So there's different specialized blockchains which can do things better than probably others, and also you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time, right? It's already there, and if you can also tap maybe only one of the blockchains as a dApp, and this blockchain then taps all the other blockchains for you. So you can see later as a user, you actually see the whole, or as a dApp developer, you basically see the whole functionality of all the Polkadot ecosystem chains in there, which are ready for you, and you just pick what you want to do, and they're communicating with each other, and this makes the whole thing like a really valuable ecosystem. And of course, then this ecosystem can also touch other chains, right? It's also possible to build bridges to other chains then, so that it actually becomes an interconnected world, and that's the idea. So you have specialized people. I think this is one of the things where humans are quite good in, right? We are all specialized. This is why we strive, and there's people who can build houses, and then there's people who can build shoes. I can do neither of them, but I have a house and a shoe, which is actually pretty good for living, and this is how we should work, I think.
That's a cool way of saying it. And I also, when I compare, and I think the big breakthrough, let's say in the business models we've seen in Web 2 was also when you start combining things. Uber wouldn't be possible if they had to shoot up their own satellites and run GPS, and and so it's a combination of mobile data, it's UI, it's the internet, it's GPS, everything. And same with Airbnb. There's so many, you just connect very, very specialized services. And if you had to build it for yourself and then even maintain it, you would never get to where you want to be. Always be reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, but that's one of those interesting. That's one of those interesting things, right? Because Uber exists as a platform, right? You get that walled garden mentality, though, because they figured out the way to plug all these different things in, and that doesn't exist in Web3 in a very strong fashion, right? So that value doesn't disappear; it gets transferred back, whether it be Spotify or Uber, whatever it may be, to the owners of the protocol, or who owns the coins, the users of the protocol, where they get cheaper services. There's a lot of different ways it could be built, right? But I talk a lot about unbanking and things of that nature, where there's these huge monolithic corporations that are just basically rent sinking in between, and the real value of the interoperability, in my opinion anyways, in Polkadot is being able to access exactly what you need from these purpose chains or purpose dApps or whatever it may be, connect them, and then you get to kind of create your own freedom in the blockchain world, which is just, it's literally impossible either as a worker or a consumer in the current kind of like paradigm, right? So I think that's one of the really interesting things about the XCM interoperability kind of mode.
True. And
I see, like, my bad. It's just like I see parachains as like Legos. Like most people here are familiar with Legos, and if typically I never made fake houses. I would always build other stuff, but there's the flat green piece that would kind of be like your land,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of imagine it almost like a circuit board also in the same sense. And each of these Legos are like parachains, but like these programmable Legos, and the circuit board can do whatever it is that all of the Legos attached to it can do. So as I really like how I really like to view parachains as like purpose chains. They are really focused, specialized on what they do and what they do best. And again, this is really important for the sake of computation and storage and things of this nature, to be specialized. But you can have that, and for builders, you can kind of just one day be able just to plug in or plug into all of those different Lego pieces, and just kind of make that ultimate circuit board that you need to do all these different powerful and amazing things.
And how do you think? How niche do you think will the parachains be in the future? So when you're thinking a couple of years, or probably in Web3 times, like months ahead, but how specialized would you get all the parachains, and other different, you touched upon purpose chains and other types of chains? So in terms of like design considerations, how do you see the interoperable ecosystem and how chains are being built?
I think that's maybe that is actually driven by demand, I would say, because what we see right now is that we still have a lot of things which we actually could all use, right? There's no oracles on parachains and all that. These things are missing, so that we can actually put things together. So I would like to live in a world where I can basically pay with a Kilt coin, something that is also that is actually priced in Ethereum or something. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And so that needs some kind of decentralized exchanges. Apparently, this needs some kind of an oracle which actually provide us the prices and stuff like that. So these things should be possible, and there's tons of other things which are needed. And when this ecosystem starts to flourish a little bit beyond the DeFi, which we already have, so DeFi is pretty strong already, but I think there's a world beyond DeFi. This starts with NFTs. This starts with things like intellectual property. This starts with DIDs and digital identity and stuff like that, but there's a lot of other things to come. But all these things then require other things. And there will be people out there who build those parachains because it is missing. And when it is missing, it is actually an opportunity to do something, probably also to earn money with it. And that's attractive. And this is what's going to happen. So I think the specialization will actually be a little bit bigger in the future. So and that is actually needed. And this is a huge chance for everyone out there who actually wanted to build something. There's tons of things to do. It's not like it's all ready, right? There's I mean, at least 50 parachains which we are totally missing right now, and some of them will be common good chains, which is also nice, and some of them will be parachains which are real parachains.
And David, for DeFi, so especially when you're saying you're an automation hub, do you think it's a little bit broader? So when I think of kind of what different parachains provide, I think Kilt identity and automation hub, is it really broad? How do you see, is there like a difference between that there are only, let's say, a couple of front end devs running on Kilt, but then a lot on the automation chains, or how would the connection be between specialized versus broad chains, and then what we see on the front end?
Yeah, so I think for us, our CEO often calls it kind of horizontal scaling as opposed to vertical, right? Where the automation chain is highly specialized. We built it on Substrate. That's a big reason why we're here. We needed that alarm clock opcode, which the EVM does not have. So by building that in, we've made it very efficient for the automation use case. You have to store a transaction, right? If I want to, send a New Year's gift card or wish my friend a happy birthday next year, right? You're gonna have to store that transaction for a year. It's quite memory intensive, right? So you actually don't want to store that on any chain that's not specialized for that type of activity. You want to offload that to us. It's more efficient for everyone, just like the reason Ingo has shoes. I also have shoes, right? You want to be able to give these things to specialized tasks, but the reason I use the hub nomenclature is because you don't just, automation is powerful kind of in one place, but to Dakota's point, it's really powerful when you go everywhere, right? So it's not just that you have one chain, and auto compound is kind of the first one where you say, okay, every week I want to take my rewards and invest them back into the same LP, right? It gets very much more powerful. I'll use DeFi for an example, just because it's kind of easy to conceptualize right now. We can go to the moon if you guys want to afterwards, but you can take those rewards and invest them in a different LP on a different chain, right? And then you could take those rewards and you can put them as a limit order on your favorite DEX, right? And you can keep stacking that up. You can dollar cost average in, create your own ETFs. There's all these different things you can do once you have like a hub for automation that can automatically trigger things on other chains depending on where you're at, right? So that's the reason for the XCM. That's the reason we built it the way we did. As you start going off like into crazy land, you can revoke someone's access to the private GitHub when their DID like moves from one company to another, right? Like when you change jobs. So there's these type of automated things that happen chain to chain as well, where you really need a centralized, and I use that term kind of willy-nilly, maybe I shouldn't, right? But a repository that's connected to a lot of different places that you can store your future transactions. And we don't have space for DID. We definitely don't have front end developers that are capable of creating some of the things like the NFTs that Dakota's got going on. But that's the fun part, right? It can all kind of work together, and people can build whatever they need to on top. And then Oak kind of sits there as the automation layer, and that's kind of exclusively what we do.
Yeah. On that note, I'll just say so with Invarch and IP, like just real quick before diving into how niche I think things will be. There are many things that I know are important to us. So there's DID, there is automation, there's off-chain computation, there's smart contracts, there's privacy. If we had to build all of that, oh my God. I mean, that's, dang, we do it, but maybe we do good at the, there's two things. Is one, that's a lot of time, and we're not necessarily experts in those fields. You know what I mean? I have a lot more faith in Ingo at building a Kilt and providing a DID solution than I would in Invarch also providing a DID solution. That's not our area of expertise. And then also to have just the computation of storage, I mean, that is just not realistic. You're kind of striving towards recreating a lot of the problems that exist in Ethereum, which is kind of the whole point that we're trying to get away from. So there's definitely some big things there. I just want to I'm really thankful for the way that Polkadot is designed, because there are all of these amazing solutions and other parachains that exist out there. And we're able to build knowing that these solutions exist. You know what I mean? And we have, obviously there's, projects, reputations, things like that. But these are amazing projects. These are amazing teams, and we have trust in those teams, and we entrust in what they're building. And it gives us peace of mind because it allows us to build and to focus on what we're building and specialize on, again, on ownership primitives with NFTs and things of this nature. And we're able to focus on this, knowing that this world of exciting possibilities that really amps us up because of a lot of these other pre-existing solutions. That world it's more so not just an imagination. It's more so this something that'll become inevitable one day, But with that being said, I'll also say I truly believe that how niche or not chains become in the future, I think it really does depend on the success of XCM ultimately, because currently to start, there's just a reality of human nature and how we react and how we respond to things. So there will always be, if there's an economic opportunity, someone will seize it. You know what I mean? Eventually that will always happen. And whether someone is seizing on something niche or not, that's the thing. But if there's a niche case, I do believe people will get for those, and that's good, because there are a lot of parachains that Ingo said don't exist yet that should. But even more so, I think why XCM is important is because Invarch focuses on our NFT primitives for ownership. There's a little fungible token stuff going on there too as well, but really it's on this. And because of this, because we focus on this, we're able to provide a lot of solutions for DAOs and developers and all these other things that might be outside of our original scope, but it's because we've done so well to focus on what we're building. If interoperability, as long as that truly does take off in the way that I know it can, and I know it will, then we don't need to have necessarily we'll have smart licenses, which is something related to smart contracts, but different. It's not an EVM. It's not WASM necessarily. We don't need to worry about being a smart contract platform, which is really important for building dApps. I mean, that's kind of what they use. It's really important for them, but we don't need to supply that. If our primitives can interact with smart contracts launched on, let's say, Gear, as long as that works out, perfect. Doesn't need to happen, and that's an amazing thing for us. But in an alternate world, if that was a hurdle, then I feel then teams may feel inclined to build out other solutions onto their chains. But at the same point, I do truly believe it is important to have a chain that is specialized for smart contracts. Not to say chains like Astar is also very, very important to cross-chain hub, and there's our different utilities. But it's important to have this because otherwise I feel and this might be a controversial thing, But I feel like any chain that is also like an EVM WASM chain, it kind of makes it hard for that chain not to have the potential to become a general purpose blockchain. You know what I mean? Just because of, technically speaking, you could, it's just Ethereum on a different chain, you know, like it's just, it's in a sense, in theory. So at the end of the day, I think, you know, how niche and things are, people will always try to expand outwards a bit to like do the best at what their niche is and try to encompass those areas a bit more. But as long as XCM and interoperability truly does pan out, like, then we don't need to, you'll see less of that, I think, and you'll see more cooperation instead. Like an example, like there's Manta Network, and they provide a privacy layer. Then there's Embarks, we have our NFT primitives, and some people might be familiar with Secret Network, which you kind of say is like a blend between the two in some ways. But trust me, Manta is definitely designed. Their architecture is really, really nice. But with all that being said, you know, they are able or will be able to provide a privacy layer for NFTs, and that's good. But let's say for whatever reason one day they weren't. I mean, that's an important feature. You know what I mean? So that's something that we would maybe then feel inclined to build out. But again, that wouldn't be the case. But it's interesting dynamics at play when it comes to that. It's really fun to imagine how things play out, because it really is a massive game theory. It's just economics at play, and it's a big world out there. So it's just cool to see how things will play out.
Thank you. We have 3 more minutes to go, and I don't want to miss out on the last question. But maybe we can do a quick one before. Do you see, like, what are the bottlenecks that you currently see in kind of, you know, before we're reaching the perfect interoperable future? Where do you say the community should get involved? Where would you like support from other parachains, from Parity, and so on and so forth? And you can just give bullet points and I think you muted, Ingo.
Better now. What I think is actually crucial to success of everything and is adoption. And what we tend to do in our little ecosystem, and Polkadot is no different than other ecosystems in blockchains in that respect. We normally like to play with each other, and this is always fun because everyone understands blockchain and we don't have to explain so much, and then we can build great things, and then we totally fall in love with the technology that we build, but actually we have to take it outside our bubble. This is what is actually missing, because when you start talking with those people outside the bubble, then you get requirements you would never have thought of, and then you're starting building really useful things which the people out there can actually use. This is needed for everyone, because this in the end will attract more people to work in our ecosystem. And this is the other thing that we need. The ecosystem has to grow rapidly because we need app developers. We need new parachains. We need common good chains. We need tons of people in here who want to learn the stuff that we do. Sometimes it's really complicated. Sometimes it's really easy. Actually, building a dApp is something that normal computer scientists coming out of university can do from morning to afternoon, and then they're done, hopefully. And so I think the growth of this thing will be determined by our ability to actually look outside of our ecosystem, because this will bring more people inside our ecosystem. I think this is the most important thing that we have to look at for the next years, actually.
Nice, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think I've got something similar written down as far as like UX goes, in terms of creating like a actual, like, a good product that solves a real problem, right? Like, I think that's kind of my take on it, being like kind of the growth person, but I think this ties in very closely with what Ingo's talking about. If you create something that's like genuinely useful, if you create something that's easy to use, and you can kind of obfuscate all this like XCM stuff in the background, right? It's actually really, really powerful. There's quite a bit that XCM can do very clearly, without having to have all these multiple wallets and jumping back and forth between bridges and all these other things. We have the ability to make really, really incredible products. And I think It just takes time, right? The relay chain had to go off, the crowd loans have to go off, the purpose chains have to get built, but it really does kind of feel like it's starting to happen now, and it's been really fun watching our engineering team talk with the other engineering teams at all the HRMP channels getting opened with our Kusama chain touring, and I think Ingo is spot on, and I'm excited to kind of see it happen, because it doesn't strike me as something insurmountable, and it's refreshing to see a number of different projects kind of taking that same approach right now. Like, it's happening literally as I speak. So yeah.
There are about, I checked recently, 10,000 XCM messages sent per day, which is cool and like growing. So that's well, not a fun fact. But cool. Okay, Dakota.
I'd just say, well, first and foremost, what we always talk about the back end, but really like the front end, the UI, UX is a really big thing. We've done an amazing job of building, and we're still going. There's still a lot of work to do with the back end and like the fat layer is what it's really called. But for the thin layer, just users, the world needs to have a comfortable portal into Web3. I think that's very important. So shout out to just notably, there's many amazing teams and wallets out there, but Talisman, the team over there, they have a really good understanding of this, and they're working on a lot of great solutions. So that's a big thing. And that just ties into what everyone else has already said is, sometimes we get really excited with what we're building and it's really fun and all this, but we kind of get siloed in that, siloed vision through that excitement. And it's one thing to be making things that are technically new and different, but another thing to where we need to get actual utility out to people, and we need to get it to them in a way like we shouldn't have to shove it down their force and like tell them why they need it. It should just be something that they've needed or they want, and they're happy that they found it, and it's something that's easy, something that otherwise just something that empowers them. But I mean, those are the main things. Just getting the message out there. Most people aren't necessarily familiar with blockchain, but most people don't know what like a IMAP protocol or POP3 protocol is, but send emails, and that's what we need to keep in mind moving forward. There's really like bottlenecks, I'd say, within the working with teams. That's fantastic, and support otherwise is great. Just remembering that we might be changing the world, but we have to remember all of the people that live in the world that we're changing it for. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Just imagine, always keep in mind their experience. That'll end up in the end being the most important thing. I truly do believe. Cool.
Thank you so much. Guys, it was really, really exciting. Thanks for joining the panel. I actually also have to read through the comments. I see that there are quite a few good ones in there. But so far, thank you so much for coming. And it's really exciting. I think we've got even more exciting times ahead. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.